where the market is going is the people that are not adopting technology are going to be falling behind. What we hear from a lot of our clients is like, look, if this is not broken, why should we be reinventing the wheel? That should not be the approach. The approach should be...
Greenwashing has been a word that's been bandied around. Is there such thing as AI washing?
Yeah, 100%.
Are we moving to a world where technology is going to be able to kind of tell you very, very quickly highest and best use for particular buildings?
Yes and no. Yes, because...
Why would you not encourage them to build them in-house?
Oh, it's the worst mistake that you could do. First of all...
In terms of the team of the future, or the real estate private equity investment manager of the future, how do you see them in terms of their businesses being set up?
The companies that are going to be the winners are the companies that are going to be...
Natan, welcome to the podcast.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Not at all. Thank you so much for coming in and having a chat. I think it was probably way back in 2014 when I first started in the world of headhunting that we first met. So it's great that we can sit down 10, 11 years later and have this conversation. I'm really excited about unpicking a little bit about your journey and your route through banking and private equity. But then also touching on Built AI, the business that you co-founded and you're the CEO of, and just talking a little bit about the problems that you solve. But before we get onto that later in our conversation, can you tell me a little bit about your background and maybe origin story as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually born in Cali, Colombia. It's the third largest city in Colombia. I was there until I was 18 years old. And after that, I left to go to the US, where I basically did my undergraduate degree with a major in economics and a minor in business administration.
So is that always the plan, to leave Colombia and go to the US?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad, he always wanted us to go to the US as he believed that, of course, the quality of the education that you could get there was significantly better.
What did your parents do and what line of work were they in?
Yeah, so my dad, he had a manufacturing business and he also had a telecom business, and he was also doing real estate development, which is some of the roots that I have from a real estate perspective since I was early in my life. So we'll talk about that later.
And were you always really academic, or did you see education as a route to get you out of Cali and the kind of the madness that was surrounding you?
No, definitely. I was always very much academic. For me, academia was a big focus of since I was growing up. Yeah.
So you moved to the US and studied economics and business administration. Did you always want to get into real estate?
Not really, actually. When I joined the university, I said, I want to go into the buy side. I was thinking perhaps I was going to be working at a multi-strategy hedge fund, a long-short hedge fund. That's what I thought I was going to end up doing. And I was quite, excited about that. Like my first internship that I did when I was in university, I ended up working for Baupost Group, which is a multi-strategy hedge fund that is led by Seth Klarman. And for those of you that don't know Seth Klarman, he wrote a book which is called The Margin of Safety, that is mostly based on Benjamin Graham's book, The Intelligent Investor. I had read that book because they said that was one of the best books on the investment side. Actually, if you go to eBay, that book was discontinued because Seth Klarman didn't want anyone to understand his secrets of Baupost.
Really?
And if you go to eBay, it goes for $4,000. But I managed to get a copy of that book through a friend, and I read it inside out, and I said, wow, this place, I want to learn from this place. So I did my first internship at Baupost, and I was actually 3 or 4 desks away from Seth Klarman, which was an amazing experience. And being able even to, as part of the internship, we grabbed lunch with Seth, and we had the opportunity to ask a couple of questions. So I wanted to, undertake that career. And at the end of my internship, they said, listen, if you want to ever, work in a fund, the best training school that you can go for is doing investment banking. So mergers and acquisitions. So everyone that was in that industry had that background, because it's almost like going to the special forces of training where, I'm sure you know all about investment banking. So after that internship, I did another internship at Goldman Sachs in New York in the investment banking M&A team as part of my career.
So you got your you kind of got your university, and then summer intern at the Bow Post, and then you did you got a kind of a placement at Goldman Sachs.
That's right.
And then from there you landed at Citi. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a crazy story. When I did my internship, in the US, how it works out is that you do the 4-year program, and then on your 3rd year you do an internship. And if you're successful at the end of that internship, you're offered a full-time job once you graduate. So your senior, you have a 1-year forward job offer. This was 2008. So it was probably the worst possible time to be doing an internship in investment banking. The world was unfolding while I was there. And they told me, like, listen, we need to delay the offers. We're not going to be able to tell you if you're going to be able to come full time or not. And be mindful that I'm actually a Colombian citizen, so I needed sponsorship. So at the end of the summer, I actually had an interview with Citigroup, and they told me, like, look, we want to give you a full time offer to go to New York, 1 year after graduation. And they said, you have 1 week, take it or leave it. So I decided to take that offer, and basically I had 1 year. My senior year, I had secured this job. So I had I had a pretty relaxing senior year, having secured the job. At one point, the good thing about the US is that you could also take. It's not like in the UK where you need to have a structured degree. By my senior year, I had finished my economics degree and all of my classes. So I had the flexibility to also take electives. So I was taking like theater classes. I was taking a class that was, 3D design, which was like almost like creating, like crafting things. And my dad at one point said, like, listen, I'm spending all of this money for you to take a class in like theater. Like, what the hell are you doing? I'm spending this fortune. And I said, no, Dad, I'm already done with my economics degree. So long story short, I finished my senior year. I'm about to graduate, and I get a call from Citigroup. And at this point in time, I was just enjoying my senior year. And they said, hey, Natan, have you been reading the news? And I said, yes, absolutely. I've been reading the news, but I was hoping that you were not going to call me about this. In 2008, Citi was part of the TARP, which was a Trouble Asset Relief Program. They got bailed out by the US government, right? They gave them $20 billion as part of a bailout. There was a little clause in that bailout that basically didn't allow them to sponsor international students. So literally 1 week after graduating, they said, listen, we might have to resign your offer. They called me back 2 weeks later, and then they said, hey, are you willing to move to Hong Kong or London? And I said, well, okay, I'll go to London. And that's how I ended up. I was supposed to be in New York. That's how I ended up here. I was one of 3 guys that made it. Unfortunately, some other people might have gotten their offers, resigned it, and that's how I ended up in London with Citigroup, doing, again, investment banking in the consumer and retail M&A team.
Wow, that is unbelievable. What a story. So you landed in London, having not even wanted to be in London, and you're still here.
Still here, 16 years later.
16 years later.
Yeah.
So you landed in London in 2008?
2009.
In 2009?
Yeah, July 20th of 2009.
Doing M&A investment banking
in the consumer retail team. Yeah.
In the consumer retail team.
That's right.
And so was that just a case of that was the seat going, it was just, you were doing the M&A work that you wanted, and you just thought, just get in here, work really, really hard and learn graft, and then you'll be able to kind of pivot and find a way?
Sure. Well, I mean, the idea was that 1 year after I was going to be sent back to New York. So I got a call from Citigroup saying like, hey, you've done your 1 year. Do you want to come back to New York and finish your analyst program in New York? And being in London and having worked in the industry here, I fell in love with the city. The way that people were treating you, the approach to work, the fact that even my MD knew my name and he was willing to take me and play golf with him, that doesn't happen, right? In the other, so it was a different approach. So I fell in love with the city, and I just decided to stay here. And I did basically my analyst program at Citigroup, my 3 years, and then I was promoted to associate after my 3-year analyst program.
And is that where you switched into real estate, or were you still in the consumer space?
And when I started doing investment banking, I knew that I didn't want to build a career within within investment banking. As I mentioned, I saw it as a stepping stone to something else. So most of the people would go to a corporate private equity fund, real estate private equity fund. Some people would do corporate development or VC. At that time, my dad was doing a real estate development project in Latin America. So while I was at Citigroup, I was helping him a lot with this project. And that's kind of like when I fell in love with real estate, and I felt like I wanted to do something in the real estate space. So my shift changed. I wanted to do corporate private equity, and then it shifted to doing real estate private equity. And that's when I made the move to the buy side, and I joined a real estate private equity fund called Benson Elliott that it was head by Mark Mogul and Trish Barrigan.
Yeah, which is now Pinebridge Benson Elliott.
That's correct.
But you joined Trish and Mark in 2013.
That's correct.
How many heads was the business at that size, and what was the firm that you were joining?
It would be around 45 to 50 people.
Okay.
45 probably, with everyone, acquisitions, back office, legal. Yeah.
Okay, so it was because I came into the industry in 2014, but it was properly well established. It wasn't kind of a small growing fund at that particular stage.
Absolutely.
And so did you join as an analyst then?
That's right.
Effectively at the bottom rung, having had 4 years at Citi at this stage, but your first buy-side role?
Yeah, that's right. I joined, it was just because I had no experience in real estate. So I started as an analyst. Then I was promoted to an associate.
And what kind of deals were you working on at Benson Elliott at that time?
So it was the focus was value add and opportunistic. Given that I'm a native Spanish speaker, at that point in time there was also the Spanish market was extremely attractive. There was a lot of opportunities in Spain, both in the office space, also in the resi space. So I was doing a lot of work in the Spanish market at that point in time.
Across resi, office,
yeah,
and just kind of opportunistic and value add.
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Value add deals. And in terms of the structure there, were you working under like an MD or a principal who was kind of deal lead or deal captain, and you were doing a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the underwrite and a lot of the analysis and using the kind of existing models to...
Absolutely. I think the way that it was structured is Trish Barrigan, she was basically heading the Spanish side, and below her there was a principal called Greg Gilbert that I was working just side. It was the two of us working in the market, right?
And if I remember correctly, at Benson Elliott, the team there, they didn't distinguish between acquisitions and asset management. You kind of did everything front to back to front. You were responsible for buying through to disposition.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was. That was one of their advantages, right? Because there was the as you correctly stated, the acquisition team was also responsible for the ongoing asset management. So I was seeing the assets, the entire life cycle from the beginning all the way to the disposition. Those teams were completely, united.
Talk to me about Benson Elliott's kind of underwriting and modeling process, because like I said, when I first started as a headhunter, I did quite a lot of analysts or placing analysts into private equity groups. And I recall that Benson Elliott had a very high threshold, a very high bar from a technical skill set. And suddenly they would lock kind of prospective employees in a boardroom or what have you for 4 hours with a laptop and get them to build really complicated models. Talk to me about the process and how you underwrote deals there.
Yeah, so one of the things that was amazing about Benson Elliott was working with leaders like Mark Mogul and Trish Barrigan. So Mark, for example, he's also he was a professor in Cambridge, and he did some real estate courses in Cambridge. So his approach to real estate investing and modeling was very academic, but it was also very forensic, which meant that we had to pretty much look at every potential scenario, go extremely in depth on the market, the opportunity, and almost we would joke around that every time that we were underwriting an investment opportunity, we were writing like a a thesis for university, right? Because usually the final investment recommendation memo was around 120 or 130 pages that we had to write for each investment opportunity that we were underwriting. So it was extremely forensic and detailed what we would do in terms of when we were evaluating investment opportunities.
And was it building a bespoke model from scratch each time, or was it kind of using an in-house template that was manipulated per deal?
You could start from an in-house template, but because the deals were so bespoke, we would have to pretty much create a bespoke model for every single deal that we were underwriting.
So that was just incredibly time intensive?
Incredibly time intensive, yeah.
And hence the hours and the weekends and everything that came into actually being able to stack that amount of work to be able to hit deadlines?
Absolutely.
Property is a people business, hence the name People Property Place. Business has been tough the last couple of years. Get the people aspect wrong, business becomes impossible. Get the people aspect right, it's still hard, but it's manageable, much more enjoyable, and you're much more likely to hit your goals. So if you're looking to add top talent to your team in 2025 and you're open-minded to an alternative approach and you're keen to make business a little less hard, drop me a DM. I'd love to have a conversation with you to see how Rockborn could potentially help you with your human capital requirements. Right, let's get back to the podcast. From a scalability perspective, was there like an army of analysts that were just chunking through work? And I guess you put all these packs together. What was the kind of conversion rate from, through IC, the conversion from deals underwritten versus like actually bought?
Yeah, it depends on the year. Every year the number would change. It depends on the year. It depends on. It would also depend on the thesis that we were tackling, right? When I was working in the Spanish market, there was a lot of opportunities. In hindsight, if we had expedite the process, right, and we had been able to chuck more, analyze more opportunities and underwritten more, we would have made significant more money. But we were constrained by, as you said, how many deals you can analyze and go through this process. You can't in 3 weeks you can't analyze 15 deals or 10 deals. Just going through this process is just impossible.
It's too onerous.
It's too onerous, yeah.
And I guess it's protective as well because certain deals will go through that threshold, and I guess it enabled them to be very sophisticated in terms of the deals and very successful with the deals that they did buy, but maybe left money on the table by not having the bandwidth to get around others. You were at Benson Elliott for 3 years. Talk to me about the next leg of the career.
Yeah, in terms of my next leg of the career, I've always wanted to do something much entrepreneurial. My dad was an entrepreneur. My whole family has been entrepreneurial. So there was an opportunity for me to join an investment manager that was backed by Korean capital as basically employee number one. And I thought that was a very attractive opportunity because I was being involved in building something from scratch and seeing pretty much every single angle that it takes to build a company, right? From setting up the asset management team, the processes, the thesis, securing additional capital. It was pretty much everything. So it was me and another gentleman in an office, just the two of us.
Trying to set up a platform and
exactly.
build a business.
Yeah.
And then from there, you decided to move and set up Built AI. Talk to me about the rationale or the reasons for kind of moving out of banking, private equity and investment management to effectively kind of proptech because that didn't sound like that was probably part of the career plan if I rewind back to New York when you're doing your undergrad.
I'll step back. So when I was at this firm, we were working extremely hard. You had no time to think about what you wanted to do in the future, or you were just working and focused. When the pandemic hit in 2020, it was almost like a reset because everyone came back to their house. Then all of a sudden you had a little bit more time to think about what you wanted to do with your career and in the future. And at that point in time, I started reflecting and thinking like, what actually motivates me? Like what drives me? What do I want to do next? And I just felt that I was always extremely passionate about technology since I was a little kid. I remember that I I had an MS-DOS, I had Windows 3.0. I was programming since I was a little kid. I was extremely curious about technology. And at that point in time, I thought I wanted to do something in the technology space. And it was obvious that there was an opportunity for me, given my real estate background, to do something in technology combined with real estate. So I started thinking about all of the different pain points that I was experiencing as part of my career. And there was tons of stories of inefficiencies, and like my favorite story was there was a Friday around 7 p.m. and I was about to go home, and my boss at the time, he said, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And we all know that 1 minute on a Friday afternoon is extremely dangerous, right? Especially at 7 p.m. I said, "Sure, I have a minute." And he said, "Listen, there's a portfolio of 7 shopping centers that it just has come to the market. Can you please put together some quick numbers by Monday? Don't kill yourself, but can you do this for me?" And I said, "Okay, sure." So I spent the whole weekend putting together this model. And then basically, had no sleep. I showed up to the office at 9 a.m. and I shared the analysis with my boss. What do you think my boss said when I shared the analysis?
Yeah, we're not going to look at that.
We're not going to look at it. Exactly. We're not going to look at it. We're going to pass. And this is one of I thought about, like, wow, there has to be a better way to go through this process, that I shouldn't have gone through that. People should not be going through this. This could be definitely automated, or there has to be a better way to go through this process. So this is like some of the pain points that started developing the idea of setting up Built AI in 2020.
Yeah, which I asked you a question earlier in terms of like hit rate, in terms of deals transacted versus deal appraised at Benson Elliott, and it probably wasn't a very good question. But what I was probably trying to get to is what you've just discussed there is you can spend a lot of time doing a lot of work for whatever reason. Pick a reason for someone to say, "Oh, it's no longer going to happen." And I've certainly spoken to leaders who feed their juniors work, knowing that they're not actually going to be able to transact on something, but they feel like they need to give them something to do, or kind of enable them to learn or build skill sets, or kind of look at particular deals and sharpen their act. But it sounds incredibly inefficient and a waste of resources.
Yeah, and the worst are the leaders that would give their team deals when sometimes what the leaders don't know is that the analyst or the associate, they know from just looking at the numbers on the back of the envelope that this is not going to go anywhere, but still they're forced
to go through the whole process.
To go through the whole process, even knowing that this is not going to go anywhere because the numbers don't add up or stack up.
On the back of like a fag packet, quick numbers.
Exactly.
And because of the culture of those businesses, it's very hard to kind of pull rank and kind of get to that punch before having gone through the whole process.
Yeah, that, and also some of these businesses are also judged by the amount of deals that they're analyzing, and then they have to go back to their LPs and say, "Look, I'm seeing, this amount of deals have come through my pipeline, this amount of deals I have underwritten." So there is also a number that people have to reach out to show that they have coverage.
The KPIs. And the metrics that they have to kind of demonstrate that they've underwritten to be able to show that they are able to source potential deals, or they're looking at.
Or just going back to your point around when you ask me what percentage of deals goes through is a little bit of a chicken and egg situation, because some people will just say, like, "Look, I'm looking at thousands of deals and there's only like 1% conversion ratio," but maybe those thousands of deals, you shouldn't have been looking them in the first place. But when you're going to your LPs, you can say, "Look, we're very what's the right word? We're very picky with what we see. Look, we've underwritten thousands of deals and we've only picked up this single amount of deals."
Rather than look at 20 and transact on 10.
Exactly.
Or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So how did you take that idea, or kind of looking at some of the pain points and some of those inefficiencies that you kind of came across, how did you translate that into actually coming up with a company and a solution to that particular problem you identified?
Yeah, so the pain point, what we started with everything that was financial modeling. So I met my co-founder through Founders Factory. His name is Firoz Nordin, and he comes from a product background. He's a leverage finance banker as well. He was at NatWest, and the two of us came together and we started brainstorming the different pain points that people were experiencing, and we agreed that this was an area that needed to be addressed, because think about it, like real estate being one of the largest asset classes in the world was still, well, it's still operating with legacy tools that are over 30 and 40 years old. So we saw that there was a clear opportunity for disruption and bringing a next generation tool that could help people like myself just not only be more efficient, but be better investors by being able to analyze things quicker, more effectively, more thoroughly.
So Built AI was found, and that was in 2021. AI has obviously been around for a long time, but in the last year or so, everyone knows what AI is and large language models, LLMs. But it sounds like you were kind of ahead of the curve there. Was AI always integral to the solution?
Yeah. The thing is that most of the people, when they think about AI, they think about ChatGPT and LLMs. But in fact, there's different branches of AI that have been around for many years. And we were playing around with some of those branches in the technology that we were building before even LLMs were in place.
Talk to me about what technologies and which ones were you playing around with?
Yeah, predominantly two types of technology. So natural language processing and machine learning that is mainly used for the extraction capabilities that we have for data. So when you have, if you want to extract data from a document in a structured format and you want to bring it into a platform, that was something that we were working a lot. The other technology that we had developed is something called a data inference technology, where basically if you have limited data points in a market, we applied this technology to enhance and fill out those gaps. So for example, let's say you're looking at a micro location that doesn't have a lot of rental comparables, you would be able to use our technology to make an inference of what rent should be in that micro location based on different variables that we had constructed.
And so AI was at the core, it was kind of the core value proposition of what you're trying to build, but the initial product was all around being able to underwrite faster, quicker, with less inefficiencies or inaccuracies within that.
That's right.
And you touched on legacy products, 30, 40 years. Is that Excel, but also things like Argus and Circle?
Exactly.
And what were kind of other products were on the market at that particular time?
Those are the main products.
Because I don't really hear the word Argus or Circle being used much anymore. Obviously, Excel is the mainstay. I certainly recall people maybe valuers using Argus, and maybe more of the surveying firms, because you can kind of plug the inputs and you get the outputs, but you can't really see the numbers and how and where, and you can't necessarily synthesize it in the same way that you can with Excel. And I must put a disclaimer in that I'm not technical at all, so I'm probably going to say things that don't make sense at all. So please do correct me. But is that right? Is that fair?
Yeah. So I would say that in the UK, you still see some investors using Argus. There's a big market share on the valuation community. So a lot of the valuers do use Argus. Where I would say that Argus has even a higher market share is in the US market. Part of the reason behind that is because the way that leases are structured in the US, they have a lot of nuances around recoveries and other structured elements that is not like in the UK where you have like a triple net lease. So Argus has spent a lot of time through their software helping people to just model those leases. So a lot of what you would see is that a lot of the investors in the US, they use Argus to arrive to the NOI line and just model those leases. They will probably export to Excel and then just continue in Excel when it comes down to modeling the rest of an asset. So there's a lot of usage in the US on that side.
But that doesn't necessarily translate as well over here to the UK market.
Here it's not as prevalent, but it's highly prevalent for valuers. A lot of the valuers and de facto the clients of the valuers, they would use Argus for valuations.
Got it. Fine. So did you raise money to set Built AI up, or was it kind of bootstrapped from savings?
We did raise some capital. That's right.
And was that to build an initial team or kind of get engineers or software engineers or data analysts or scientists? What was the...
Yeah, the first round of capital, we raised it just to put together a little MVP with very few employees. Then we raised a pre-seed round, and we're also going to be announcing soon our next round of funding that has been finalized.
Amazing. So, talk to me a little bit about the kind of the platform as it stands today. Who who firstly uses it, and then secondly, what does it do?
So we have different client types. So institutional investors like London Metric would use our platform. People like Knight Frank IM have also used our platform. That's on the investment side. On the brokerage side, we have the likes of like CBRE, the UK team, using our platform. So we cover both investors and brokers that have been using the platform. Predominantly, as I mentioned before, the platform can help people underwrite and analyze investment opportunities much quicker and faster. Also, it provides them the ability to share those analyses with both internal teams and third parties very quickly, and being able to collaborate extremely efficiently, both inside the team or with external parties. A lot of our clients are also using our platform for asset management. So running different scenarios within their existing portfolio to understand what is the implication of different decisions. For example, leasing different assets at different rental levels. What happens if you hold your asset for a longer period of time, different exit assumptions. So a lot of asset management initiatives are being run within our platform as well.
So as a real estate investor or private equity group, can they literally just take a kind of a brochure, and do they need to kind of plug in some assumptions or details, or how does it kind of actually work?
It's very simple. They just drag the brochure to our platform, either upload it directly or through an email. And for most of our clients, we have their in-house set of assumptions. So then the deal will be, all of the information will be extracted, and a deal will be created with the house assumptions. So basically 98 to 99% of the work will be done by Built AI. And then it's up to the client to just tweak the final assumptions and refinement when it comes down to the deal.
So they literally just put in what we're looking for, value add returns, and they'll hit their kind of particular metrics or cost of capital or debt pricing, etc. They'll plug those assumptions into the model, so the model knows the cost of capital and the other kind of elements of which, or the lenses at which they're appraising the deal, and then Built AI will do the rest of it.
Yeah, pretty much. The client will, in addition to that, the client will be able to add all of their house assumptions for the different types of markets that they're looking at, the different rental growths, the different yields for different asset classes, the type of CapEx programs that they usually use. As much as they want to add in terms of house assumptions, we can provide them with that. So we can facilitate and do a lot of the heavy lifting when a deal is uploaded into our platform.
And does the platform regurgitate a specific model? Is the same model, the same template? It's time and time and time again. It just churns up the same one, obviously with different numbers.
Yes.
So it's very standardized.
Very
in terms
standardized.
Of the process. Got it. Fine. And how long does it take to do that?
It depends on the type of assets that are being analyzed, but usually we just say anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes.
It can turn a model around.
Yeah.
So for businesses that are underwriting or screening a lot of deals, whereas it could take a whole weekend or a whole week or a whole army of people to do that work, you can kind of do a really comprehensive underwriter model
in minutes
effectively.
Right.
And it still needs some top and tailing with a bit of a human eye just to make sure that it's all okay.
Exactly.
And how flexible is like the model, or are you able to kind of look at the formulas or how it's being pulled together, or is it a kind of a step away from that?
It's extremely flexible, and coming from Benson Elliott, that I had a value add and opportunistic business plan background, we've made the model in a way that is extremely flexible in what it can tackle. So we've done very complex business plans, like a change of use from office to residential, splitting units, selling different units at different yields, merging units, different lease-up structures. It can tackle very complicated business plans, and it could also be exported to Excel with formulas that going back to your point around transparency. Pretty much all of the metrics in our Excel export have the formula, so it gives people the comfort that things are being calculated how they would want to be calculated, and not a black box.
Yeah, so for a particular client group, does the data that they upload, or the deals or the brochures that they upload, do you get access to that? And is that what feeds the model? And like the more information you can suck from all your clients, it like improves the sophistication of the model? Or are they each client's data kind of ring fenced and no one has access to
Everything is ring fenced and no one has access to that. It's segregated.
So how do you train the model then?
So the extraction technology has been trained with dummy information that we had in the past, and also from public of it. There's a lot of information that is public, public brochures, public deals that we have used for the training.
Fine. And then because you've got the team of scientists and real estate private equity
Yeah.
professionals in-house who've got the technical skills,
Exactly.
they're able to adjust and tweak and improve and train the model effectively rather than relying on client or third-party data to be able to do that. In terms of, as a headhunter, I get to talk to a lot of CEOs and a lot of leaders about the kind of the constructs of their team and some of the challenges. And it's been a long time since we've done analyst hires and kind of do more senior level work now. But I know that it's a real challenge for senior leaders to hire good quality analysts, because they'll meet someone, they'll like them from a personality perspective, but they'll fall over from a technical perspective, typically. I guess this product removes the need to hire swathes of junior analysts or be able to create pools or pods or cohorts of that. Does it mean that you need to have kind of a senior like head of portfolio modeling, data analytics, who has got a very strong technical understanding, but who can utilize and leverage your technology to basically do a whole team or a whole army's worth of underwrite and modeling? Is that kind of how you see the team or the investment team construct moving?
I think that the investment construct could be similar. We're just supercharging the people with better tools so they can spend less time doing a lot of the manual work and the things that don't add a lot of value add. I feel like an analyst should still be to be able to understand how an IRR is calculated, what's an equity multiple, and more importantly, what are the drivers for a business plan, so that when there's an underwriting that is being undertaken, they can understand how an underwriting has been constructed. What we're moving away is a lot of the inefficiencies around. We talked about manual data entry, extractions, building these crazy formulas in Excel that you could just spend multiple hours building that are unnecessary, removing the notion of mistakes. There was a study that was, you can look at it online. There's a professor called Ray Panko from the University of Hawaii that he stated that over 88% of financial models worldwide have material mistakes. It's very alarming. And we've seen a lot of these mistakes when we're doing auditing from side-by-side comparisons. So we're removing that risk. A lot of people don't know, but that's a risk that some of these firms are facing by, recycling a lot of these models that people have been created, and there's hard codes that are falling out everywhere, and we're removing that risk. So,
I can absolutely believe it. And I guess an analyst teaches another analyst, who then gets promoted to an associate, who teaches like the intern how to use the in-house model. Mm-hmm. And it's like a kind of a perpetual cycle. Yeah. I guess now with AI and the technology, it kind of like removes the need for that cycle, but also limits the errors that you kind of touched on, to give leaders confidence in terms of the actual numbers. So when they're going to raise equity or debt, or report or play around and do various different scenarios or synthesize different asset management plays, they can be confident in the numbers, where previously maybe there was a part of them that knew that something wasn't quite right, or the model itself might not be right because the assumptions are slightly off, or whatever it might have been. One of the challenges that I've heard of, and obviously I haven't experienced it firsthand, is brokers underwriting deals and then sharing that with their clients, and the clients basically looking at the deal and going, we have to completely re-underwrite this in terms of our own in-house assumptions and way that we go about doing that. Does your product eliminate some of that friction? And how does it work against, the kind of the funds, the managers, and the agents that you kind of touched on, that are your kind of three different client types?
So as I mentioned, we have a lot of agents as clients. And what Built AI is helping the agents is help them speak the same language as institutional investors. So they already do. A lot of the agents, they speak the same language, but this is increasing the speed of the collaboration between an agent and an investor. So when an agent analyzes a deal with Built AI, they can share the deal with an investor through a shareable link. If an investor opens that shareable link through Built AI, the deal can automatically be underwritten with the house assumptions from the investor. So this is actually, and we're seeing it already, it's increasing the velocity of where agents can share deals with investors and investors can underwrite those opportunities. So we're helping the market with increasing the liquidity. We're allowing everyone to speak the same language by allowing people to share deals and basically have a standard of how a deal has to be underwritten, and also to make sure that the source information that is being shared is 100% accurate. When a deal is shared from an agent to an investor, all of the assumptions, the way that the leases are structured, the cost recoveries, everything is perfect. And there's no, an investor doesn't have to think twice about how that building should be modeled or underwritten. So we're seeing amazing interactions already between the agency clients and the institutional investors collaborating within the Built AI environment. Is fantastic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I guess it comes back to that point in terms of like time saving, right? Or having confidence in the numbers that they are what they say they are. The real estate market is known for being very, very opaque. It sounds like Built AI is almost kind of like leveling the playing field. And I know people have got their own proprietary information, but with the rise of AI as well, are people's edges going to be removed?
Definitely, the market is opaque. And with Built AI, we're helping people analyze a larger volume of deals and also play in different areas that they might not be as confident in different asset classes. So we're encouraging, helping that side of the market. I feel that where the market is going is the people that are not adopting technology are going to be falling behind. So even, of course, if you're not using Built AI, I would encourage everyone that is listening to this podcast to be being more open about adopting technology and looking at different solutions, because the industry is moving very quickly. It's a highly competitive industry. And the only way one of the ways, maybe the only way that people will find an advantage is through technology and embracing technology. So everyone should be looking at different solutions, being more open, and not being comfortable with the status quo. What we hear from a lot of our clients is like, look, if this is not broken, why should we be reinventing the wheel? And that should not be the approach. The approach should be, we should be looking at ways to do things better. Not even from like a financial modeling, but anything, asset management, property management, tenant engagement. Adoption of technology is a way forward.
Yeah, I guess it's an absolute CFO's dream and nightmare at the same time, trying to work out where they can piece all these different parts of, the puzzle together with the ops team to try and work out what's going to be a time save, but also a revenue generator as well, and how can you be a little bit more efficient. Greenwashing has been a word that's been bandied around. Is there such thing as AI washing?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of what we've seen is the rise of what are called ChatGPT wrappers. So it's companies that are operating in the AI space, but they're just basically using all their LLM tools as what is called a wrapper. So you're buying a service, but in fact, you're just buying ChatGPT or another LLM behind it. So that's what it's called. That's one element of AI washing. And then the other element is people that claim that they have AI within their technology, but there's just no AI. There's been a lot of stories recently that we've heard of companies that claiming that they had AI, but a lot of the work was outsourced to a third party, other countries, and it was just manual work that was being undertaken.
But they sold it as an AI
solution. Exactly.
An AI solution, but it wasn't. Are we moving to a world where we can kind of point and look at a building and Built AI or other kind of generative AI tools will look at that building and be able to crowdsource a lot of data and say, know what your assumptions are, and say, based on the assumptions and the return hurdles, you should buy that building for 24.3 million, and it should be changed from an office to a 56 key hotel, and this is what the capex and opex is going to be. Are we moving to a world where technology is going to be able to kind of tell you very, very quickly highest and best use for particular buildings?
Yes and no. Yes, because the technology is there from the capabilities. No, goes back to the point around how the market is opaque and it's not transparent, right? You might have as we know in real estate, yes, there's the assets itself, but you need to understand what's behind the asset. What are the leases? How are leases structures? There are some of these leases that are in the land registry. I believe if a lease is over, I might be wrong, over 7 years, it has to be filed in the land registry. So you can get access to that information. But for some of those leases that are shorter, then you have no idea what's inside this building and what's the notion. Not to mention, like there's certain things that are intrinsic in nature that you have to physically be inside a building to understand. If there's capex requirements, the layout of the building, the composition, even how much the light comes into this build. These are all intangibles. So I think that we're limited by the amount of public information and the opaqueness of the market to get to that point where you can 100% be certain and getting those type of insights.
So it'll be still traditional old school methods and approach, and kind of having the knowledge or knowing who can provide you that knowledge combined with the technology is the way that the market will move, so you can kind of get to the punch much faster.
Yeah, I would say so, but I wouldn't be. So one of the things where the market is going is with the notion of AI agents. Have you heard about this term?
I have heard about AI agents, yeah.
So I'm super excited about this space because basically, like an AI agent is someone that is an agent that can do a task on your behalf.
It's like an employee, right?
An employee. So maybe just put a bookmark on this, and then let's talk about it in 3 or 4 years. But I could definitely see a world where an AI agent can autonomously go to the market and hire someone to visit a site or to get the information on that building that you've mentioned, right? So, because what I was telling you was that there's a limit on the information. So the AI agent could say, hey, I need someone to go inside this building just to get this information, or the AI agent could contact a broker, an investment agent, to get those insights and get that information on the client's behalf. That's where I think the industry is heading. And it allows you to create an army of these agents that can undertake a lot of these tasks that are required to gather that information for the exercise that you mentioned, right?
And then it feeds the model,
exactly,
your own internal model, the information data that you have that it has kind of gathered.
Yeah.
And then using tools like Built AI can underwrite more faster, more sophisticated, and with more accuracy than it would, kind of a manual process.
Absolutely, and
maybe even flag, hey, human needs to get involved with this particular situation, right? Or give them something to do as part of the work stream.
Absolutely, and it's not that far off. If you play around with the latest tools, like for example, GPT, the latest has Operator, which is you can literally ask it to go to like OpenTable or a website and find a reservation for a restaurant, and it navigates your browser and it does those tasks on your behalf, and it understands what it's seeing on the website and can actually manipulate the website on your behalf. And you can ask it to do that on different websites. Like the other day, I was playing around with it and I logged into my LinkedIn. So I have right now over 750 like LinkedIn invitations that are unanswered. So I said, just take all of those invitations, take the names, right? Put it on an Excel spreadsheet, give me a biography of these people, classify them across people that I like, the different industries, so I can prioritize who should I be engaging with. And he just did that all on my behalf. So that's just a task, right?
Just one task, and then I guess you build the what and the ifs. If this, then that, kind of workflow off the back of it.
Exactly.
Connect with these, send this message, book a meeting in or a follow up or a call or what have you.
Exactly.
So in terms of the team of the future, or the real estate private equity investment manager of the future, how do you see that shaping out, and certainly the ones that are kind of tech or AI focused and get it right? How do you see them in terms of their businesses being set up?
Well, I think that the companies that are going to be the winners are the companies that are going to be embracing technology. It is agentic technology, and are going to be able to put as many tasks as possible across some of these elements, right? So you might have like an AI agent that specializes in leasing, in CapEx programs, in other asset management initiatives, and the people that are embracing the introduction of this type of technology within their organization. It's a big leap for some people. Just moving into AWS or getting like a Microsoft Copilot is huge. Just to do this is enormous. So but the people that are bold and are going to be playing around and taking the risks are going to be the winners. And we've seen a couple of big real estate private equity funds that have already injected multiple millions.
Really?
Yeah.
By hiring heads of AI?
Heads of AI, data scientists.
To own these work streams.
To just explore. And I wouldn't advise these people to build their own things in-house, but I would advise them to start having conversations and just being curious to what is out there, just exploring the market and just picking up this knowledge because it's moving very quickly.
Why would you not encourage them to build them in-house?
Oh, it's the worst mistake that you could do. First of all, if you build in-house, it's inevitable that you're going to make mistakes. So why would you make those mistakes when there are other companies that have made those mistakes? We've made hundreds of mistakes and it's cost us a lot of money. Don't you want to leverage someone that has already made those mistakes so you don't have to spend that money? And also what we see is that some of these companies, their expertise is real estate, is not technology. So building these things in-house, what I've seen multiple cases is that they end up building a product, then they finish the product and they say, hey, yay, we spend millions of dollars like building this product. The product is shipped and then, hey, the product is 10 years old already because the market has moved significantly faster, right? Because there's companies out there that are investing hundreds of millions of dollars in new technology and they don't have those resources. And by the time that it's finished, it's completely outdated.
And I guess there's key man risk or key woman risk around the person that built it internally and if they're no longer there.
Absolutely true, especially if some of these work streams are integrated with other systems and people don't know how everything has been constructed.
The challenge with I guess third parties is the RPI uplift or the index linked. It's like that kind of cheap drug that you sign up and then suddenly you become addicted to, and suddenly the price jumps and jumps and jumps and jumps. I guess that's the other side of it. How do you see the future for built AI, and where do you see the opportunity?
Yeah, so I think we want to build an operating system that encompasses most of the work streams for real estate professionals. So not just only covering acquisitions, but asset management and valuation and multiple different work streams. So there's basically an all-encompassing operating system designed for real estate professionals, not only covering all client types ranging from agents, brokers, institutional investors, family offices, and one-man band shops.
Natan, as we draw to a close, a question I ask everyone who comes on the podcast is, if I was to give you 500 million, how would you allocate that capital?
So if I had 500 million of equity to invest in the real estate, I would take advantage of the real alignment of the market conditions. So we see that the inflation has cooled. The Bank of England is now cutting rates. Commercial property values seem to have bottomed in 2024. And we see that basically this positions 2025 as a strong year to invest into the recovery. So I would build a portfolio around three pillars. I would say core income, opportunistic equity, and I would do structured debt and preferred equity. I would put 30% into core income generating assets. So I would say the kind of properties that are reliable, inflation hedge cash flows. This would include prime logistic warehouses in the Midlands, in the Golden Triangle, last mile urban sheds, and institutional grade build to rent schemes in London's Zone 3 and 4, and in top tier cities like Manchester and Birmingham. I'd also look at maybe grocery anchored retail parks, which are currently achieving 6% plus cash yields. The next 30% would be allocated to more opportunistic equity plays. So of higher return play, I would say I would focus in sectors with long-term tailwinds like life sciences and digital infrastructure. I'd back new lab developments in the Oxford and Cambridge, London corridor. And I would also selectively acquire obsolete offices or shopping centers at a discount with a view for repurposing them. Then the remaining 40%, I would take this one is my favorite. I would say is take advantage of the current environment for structured real estate credit. I think it's super attractive industry space right now where you are you're getting a lot of like very high, very attractive rates of return with a very low risk profile. So there's also an opportunity because a lot of traditional lenders are retrenching. So you can provide senior, mezz, and preferred equity, and you could get 6 to 12% return with a stronger downside protection than pure equity plays. So that would include senior secured loans and on income-producing assets, mezzanine financing for value-add plays, or preferred equity in development plays with fixed coupons. And I think with this three-part approach, you get a steady income, opportunistic upside, and risk-adjusted yield with downside protection. I think that would be my portfolio.
Yeah, I think I'd probably need to give you 5 billion or so to wrap it around all of that, rather than just 500 million. But
well, you could, maybe
seed it and then go and raise some more capital off the back of it. Well, look, you've had a fascinating background from the streets of Cali and Colombia through to working for some incredible badges in New York, the UK, and then setting up Built AI. And I know you've signed a whole host of corporate, institutional, startup, challenger brand clients as well, who are absolutely loving the Built AI product. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing a little bit about your background, your journey, how and where you see the market going, and some of the problems that some of those groups face, and then how Built AI is set up to provide a really structured solution, and also what the future looks like in terms of evolving the product as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey, quick one from me. If you enjoyed this conversation, do me a favor and share it with a friend or colleague that you think would get value from this conversation. It would mean the world and help grow the People Property Place podcast. Thank you so much.